Hey, you guys. I wanted to come in today and continue our discussion from yesterday. Really, this discussion can go on and on because there's a lot of components and elements to it. So, in today's live chat, you guys, I want to address some things that I didn't address yesterday. And I hope that this will help people on their journey because you're not forgotten about. There are people who've experienced so many toxic relationships that they've given up on hope on even being able to experience a healthy relationship. So God hasn't forgotten about you. And if it's meant for you to have it, He's going to send it your way. And I want you to be prepared when He does. All right. So the first thing that I definitely want to reiterate, and it goes along with what I just said, is please know that healthy relationships do exist. No matter how much social media, is waging this war against the men and the women, and it's a lot of fear. Being in the media, I'm seeing, how women are just giving up on it and this and that. And I understand there are a lot of people who aren't prepared for healthy relationships, and a lot of people who haven't done the work. But please know that healthy relationships do exist. Everybody is not being abused. There are some people who are very happy in their relationships. Okay. So just because you haven't experienced it yet, you got to know that it's possible, because you can't receive something that you don't believe in anyway, right? Your mind will continuously psych you out of that. So you have to know that it's possible for that to even be able to be received. All right. The next thing, you guys, is to know that you're worthy. When you've experienced trauma, because the topic is additional tips for healthy relationships, or, going into one, maintaining one, basically, after trauma and abuse. You got to know that you're worthy. When you've had a lot of toxic relationships and those people are reinforcing the theme of you're not good enough for reciprocation, you're not good enough, for my energy and a certain amount of level of efforts, you're not good enough to not be abused. And then verbal abuse, like people literally say things, and it can make you feel like a damaged good if that starts penetrating your self-esteem, which could happen, especially when you're in a lot of these relationships, and perhaps even if this has started in your childhood. So it's been reinforced to you a lot. So knowing that you're worthy is very important as well, and you're not damaged goods. All right. And along those lines, you guys, we have to be mindful about not self-sabotaging when healthy people do cross our paths. And I've seen this play out actually in people who have been abused a lot, where let's say they had a ton of crappy relationships and they finally do meet this healthy person, but those other people did so much of a number on the person that it's hard for them to even receive the relationship, because they have negative thinking, right? And they're bringing these negative behaviors and patterns because they haven't done enough work. And you're making this new person pay for stuff that the other person did, or they might be dumping their traumas out on the new person, which is adding a lot of heavy weight at a time when the relationship should actually be light-hearted. Okay. So we have to be mindful of these things as well, as far as not self-sabotaging when we actually do, get into these healthier connections, or when they come our way. Also understand that it's not a race. It's not a race, you guys. Take the appropriate time and incubate, if you will, on yourself. Turn inward and replenish, and, what would I call this? Detox your cup and then refill it appropriately, after you've experienced traumas and abuse. It's not a race to jump back out there prematurely, and you should only do so when you actually feel ready to do it. Okay? When you actually feel ready. So I know during a trauma that I had, I took like 18 months. I took like 18 months minimal, maybe a little bit more than that, but a good 18 months that I was just by myself, and putting into myself. And I needed that time. I needed the downtime. So it's not a race, you guys. Only go back out there when you're ready and when you've done enough work to where it's not going to be to your detriment and you're not going to come off as a toxic person now. Okay. So keep that in mind. Next thing, you guys, is to know what your triggers are if you even still have them. Okay. And then you'll know if it's you when you meet that new person. Are they triggering you, or is it the trigger that you haven't healed enough or gotten rid of that, it's not them, but it's really you. It's not them. Goodness, I'm trying to find the right words. They're triggering you, but they're only triggering you because it's a trigger that you haven't dealt with. It's not because they're a toxic person full of that trigger. So if that makes sense. So because we can have flashbacks, we can have edginess, these themes of mistrust are going to be there because when you're in all of those abusive relationships, it creates the energy of never feeling safe, So it's hard for you to trust situations, and we're going to address that. And we might as well just address it next as far as the trust, because I've done this throughout the years, but now is a really good time to reiterate as far as the mistrust and not feeling safe with others. I find that a better way to look at these trust issues is not trusting yourself to make good decisions for you, not trusting yourself to be able to protect yourself, or not trusting yourself to be able to walk away from the situations that serve you. Because honestly, if you are solid within, solid enough where you're not to your detriment, and that you really just want what's best for you, you'll be willing, and what your needs are and your priorities are, like we talked about yesterday, you're going to be willing to actually walk away. So I might not be able to trust you because you're a stranger to me. Of course, I don't trust you, but I trust myself enough to where I have enough emotional maturity. I have enough self-awareness. I have enough self-esteem. I have enough courage to act on my behalf in a way where I can trust myself in any given situation to do what I need to do for self-preservation and for protection. So if you have that going on, you're not going to be so externally caught up on, can I trust this person? Because guess what? I could trust me. I could trust me to have boundaries. I can trust me to not overextend myself, to not overshare. I can trust me not to rush the relationship with you or allow you to rush me. See, I could trust myself in these ways. So whatever you're trying to do, that's on you. I'm going to peep it out, and I'll, react accordingly or address it accordingly, but I trust myself. So, work on trusting yourself, and then you'll trust yourself to date, or you'll trust yourself to engage in someone in that type of way, because it won't be more risky for you than not. When it's feeling like that, then it just means you need to turn inward at that point and make sure that your emotional maturity is where it needs to be. Okay? So that's how I think about trust. Just work on trusting yourself. Of course, you're going to have to build trust with this person, and you're going to use your emotional maturity to be able to see if you should be able to trust them. But trusting yourself first and foremost is going to give you, the wherewithal to be able to deal with trust with other people. Okay? Because we've put our trust in other people's hands, right? And what did they do with it? So we know when we use that approach, there's going to be a letdown, and then it breeds all this mistrust. But I'm not putting my trust in your hand. I'm putting it in mine where it should be. So that's what we need to be doing. Okay. So the next thing, you guys, and this is important, especially for people who are used to being love bombed and who are used to people like going from 0 to 100, sometimes when you meet someone, they may feel a little boring. A normal person, after dealing with a bunch of narcissists and egocentric type people, a normal person might even seem boring. They might have a routine about their day. They're not trying to love bomb you. They're really just getting to know you at a steady pace. And you might not even know how to take that. And when you're used to dealing with a bunch of narcissists, you might even question if this person even likes you. And they might like you a lot, but they're not displaying their energy like a love bomb that you're used to from a narcissist. And that might feel off to you when you initially experience that. And child, at 43, that's what I am right now. Boring is what I like. I like boring. And boring equals no drama, you guys. It usually equals no chaos, So, and when I say boring, it's not even boring to me. Peacefulness is not boring to me. I'm calling it boring because this is what someone might call it who's used to, like I said, being love bombed all the time. A healthy person is not trying to love bomb you. So it might, the energy is going to be different when you receive it, but it's a consistent energy. It's calm, and it's slowly progresses usually. And that's healthy. That's healthy. And that's actually what you want. That's actually what you guys want. All right. And for you single parents out there, I would actually advise you guys to make sure when you're screening people to know if they're good for your kids. Being good for you is one aspect, but they have to also be good for your kids as well. Do they even accept your kids? I know in the past I've had situations where I feel very clear, more than one, where I've gotten to know someone and it seemed like they liked me, but they weren't crazy about me having children. They weren't trying to really make the effort they needed to make with them. Now you have to pay attention to that. And if you are a single parent, you need to be leading with that. As a matter of fact, you owe that to your children now that you've had a child, or how many you have. You owe it to them because that person is going to have access to your kids in a disciplinary way, as you guys go up the ladder of commitment. And the last thing you want is, and that would be a horrible feeling, to feel like you've subjected your child to an unsavory person who wish they weren't even in the picture, who's just looking at, is like an unwanted stepchild situation. So you really need to be mindful about that. If you have children and you're out here screening people, don't make it all about yourself. This person needs to be in a position to where, because they're going to be a role model for your child, they're going to have close access to your child, especially even more than the natural parent. If the child lives with you, and then this person is living with you, they're going to be with this person more than their natural parent. So I can't stress this part enough. I've talked to survivors over the years, you guys, and I've heard some really, really bad situations where the man molested the daughter and all types of different things, you guys. So yeah, this is extremely important. And this is why a lot of people, they might even deal with their love life differently while they're raising children or while their children are young. And I'm not saying you have to make a sacrifice in that way, but you do have to be mindful. You really have to be mindful. And this was further down on the list, but I feel like it should be said right now. Background checks are good. Make sure this person doesn't already have a history of domestic violence or, shouldn't be around children, okay? Or, it's really sick out here. Somebody could be dating someone just to get next to their children, and pedophiles and all types of stuff. So these are worst case scenarios here. But, we have to keep all of this in mind because we're talking about creating a healthy relationship here. If this person, I remember a couple of years ago, at least, I was speaking to someone and they had a history. They had kids with two women, but both of the women accused this person. Like, this is something I found out like in the first conversation as we're like talking about things. And they felt comfortable to tell me this. And I'm glad they did because that was the last conversation. And he was telling me how the women accused him, both of them. I'm like, okay, so it wasn't even, it was one is enough, but both of them, they're not lying on him. You know, he has some anger issues and he was swearing that they were different now. And I'm like, well, it may be very well that you have changed, but it's too close for comfort for me. You know, I wished him well. I said, you know, perhaps you did change, but I'm unwilling to be with someone that has that type of past. Like, it's just a deal breaker for me. And it's okay if it's a deal breaker for you too. It should be. I'm going to recommend that it's a deal breaker for you. Because if they did it once, they did it twice. And these are with people they had children with, you know, just women, period. So you never know what could trigger this person into that behavior pattern again. You know, then I ended up Googling this person's name, and Lord, the stuff that popped up. I read the article about one of the baby moms and what happened. And I was like, whoa, it sounded like some Jerry Springer thing. It really sounded like some Jerry Springer thing. And I thank God that that it never went past the one conversation. So yes, do the background checks. Next thing, you guys, especially those of you who have things going on in your life, or just period, like, just make sure the person isn't an opportunist. You know, the reason or someone's intentions for connecting to your energy is very important. And when you are of the light, when you have a healing energy, you're going to attract all type of, you know, energy vampires. When you hear about your money, you're going to attract greedy people and takers. So, you know, you have to really screen people to determine if they're just being an opportunist in a negative way. You know, because we're all taking an opportunity to get to know one another. But an opportunist is really, they're going to be conditional with you. So if they're only with you for X, Y, and Z, once that runs dry, or you go through a dry patch, or they feel like they got enough from you, secreted that, then they're on to the next, you know, depending on how long they can milk you for, or how long, you know, what their agenda is. They're usually not there for a long time. You know, they're just getting a good time. The good time to them is receiving and getting from you, you know, whatever that is. So just watch the opportunist energy. I recommend leaving sex out of it because it will confuse you emotionally. Like, you'll be surprised, or you shouldn't be if you know how sex works, but you'll be a lot more clear-minded, you guys, if you leave sex out of it, you know. And I know some people are more sexual than others, and they might be even more hormonal than others, but this is where you have to have self-control, because it's just to your detriment at this point, you know. And some people actually will use sex to try to manipulate you. So if you have, you know, strong sexual desires and this and that, you really have to check yourself with this. And don't ever let anyone make you feel like it's an all or nothing thing as well. And then I'm going to add to this, and since we're talking about choosing our additional tips for choosing healthy relationships after experiencing traumas and abuse, if you were sexually abused once or many times in your life, you know, those people tend to be more sexually loose. There's a detachment from the body that's going on there, and it may be easier for you to end up in a bed with someone. So you have to protect yourself from that occurring, whether it is, you know, meeting in public. And I know people can have sex in public. I understand it. You have to go through some more steps though. So I'm just trying to increase the odds, because you're going to be one-on-one with the person or whatever. It might be better to meet and keep it in person and not go behind closed doors, you know. But what I wouldn't advise is for you to just dump that on them or share that, you know. And this goes for everyone with your traumas. You've worked hard to get to a certain point in the healing process. It's not even something that you have to disclose to someone you are just meeting. You don't have to give them a heads up, because you may very well be giving a predator the heads up, and you don't want to be defined by your past. You should be wanting to be defined by who you are today, right? So don't feel like you have to tell people these things. I recommend that you don't. I highly recommend it, because it's vulnerable information, and have they earned the right to know such sacred information about you? It's like giving somebody your social security number. Why do you need to do that? Why? You don't. Some things can be between you, but I know empaths want to share and they want to connect and they bond, but don't try to connect and bond over trauma or creating two new trauma bonds. See how that works? You're extending to the person to connect over trauma at that point. No, we want to connect over our healthy sides. Okay. So because of that, I don't need to bring that to you, but if it's something that you're dealing with yourself in the background, because it's an ongoing thing where you're dealing with this, then that's fine. But yeah, this is also a great way to see if this person respects your boundaries. If they're going to try to push you to be physical or intimate when you've already laid the boundary. And of course, you're not saying you're laying this boundary because of trauma. You're laying it out of respect for yourself and how you conduct getting to know people, before marriage, or, before a major commitment, before trust and exclusivity is established. And also you'll be fighting the shallow attachments, and shallow emotional bonds are basically, making sexual bonds and soul ties with people as well. And you'll also avoid non-committal people that want the rewards that commitment people deserve. Like, come on, there are people out there who want all the perks of what a husband or a wife should get without giving the commitment. And if you give them that, you'll be, selling yourself short and settling at that point, if you're trying to get a healthy relationship. So, yeah, do not help these non-committals have their cake and eat it too. All right. So something else to be trying to gauge when you're getting to know someone, especially when you're coming from abuse and traumas, is to figure out, is this person controlling versus having leadership skills? Or is this person trying to tear you down or having negative criticism versus constructive criticism? I find people that are positive in your life, they're going to make you better. And that could be addressing some of your weaknesses, because a lot of times when it's a yin and yang situation, this person might be stronger where you're weaker, and they'll lift you up though. It's not going to feel like they're tearing you down when that's happening. All right. It's going to feel good. It's going to feel like, this person has a positive effect on my life. So you'll know the difference by how it makes you feel. Unless you haven't done enough work, then that guilt and shame that you're feeling, is it really rooted in them or is it rooted in you? And that goes back to one of the first things we were talking about. As far as the flashbacks and the edginess and, having the mistrust and stuff. And along with the mistrust, and also, not trusting the process as well, and mistrusting your God as well, if you have any type of faith in your life. So, but when you're letting him lead the way and not your trauma and shadow side, you will find that you will get a different result. So you should mistrust the things that you were mistrusting, but there are certain things you should be able to rest in your trust. So, yeah. Another thing, you guys, to be gauging with people is figuring out, do they really listen to you? Do they really listen to you? Are you constantly repeating yourself? Or, if you're telling them something, do they follow up on it? So just gauge to see if someone's actually really listening. Like, I know I experienced someone and I'm like, I told you this. And then you told them something important and they're asking you that again and again. Like, you're not listening, buddy. You're not listening. Hey, Soja. That's cute. Soja says, hey, glad to hear you again. And glad to have you. I hope that it's helping you. And along the lines of somebody listening to you, you're going to obviously want to engage reciprocity. And you could do this in simple ways, you guys. Like if you ask somebody, how are you? They should be asking you, how are you back? You know, if you say something is wrong, they should be showing you empathy, you know? So reciprocity doesn't have to be an exact tit for tat, meaning like you bought them they bought you a dozen flowers, so you have to buy them a dozen flowers back. You know, like let's just take a masculine and feminine approach here. So if a masculine got you a dozen flowers, your reciprocity is not going to be giving them flowers back. Although, I don't know, in 2024, metrosexuals, some men may like that, but your reciprocity really is the gratitude that you're going to give back for that, you know, showing gratitude for it. So it's not always doing exactly what they're doing, but the reciprocity, you know, using your emotional maturity, you'll know what that looks like. But in someone having empathy and actually showing care for you, and even following up on it the next day. Are you feeling better today? And, you know, look out for things like that. Okay. And along that line, you guys, watch out for the first argument and see how that goes. Like, it's going to be extremely telling. It's extremely telling, you guys. A lot of things. That's why doing things as a couple is extremely telling. I know I was talking to someone and they were like, I like doing panic rooms with, not panic room, escape rooms with people that I meet to see how we can work together to get out of the room. You know, are they going to get frustrated? Are they going to be able to work with me? Are we going to be able to communicate our way through it? And I'm like, yeah. And you guys get to have fun and build a memory. And hopefully it's a positive experience. But, you know, plan something together. You know, doing stuff like that, it will start to reveal this person, because it's easy to think everything is all perfect when you guys haven't objected each other, haven't had any contrary beliefs or opinions, haven't even had a first bumping of a head or a first argument. You know, it's easy to think this relationship is perfect, but you tests come through ups and downs. And it doesn't have to be dramatic up and downs like abuse and trauma, just normal relationship stuff, you guys. So, you know, you'll see, but keep an eye out for that. But until you guys have a first argument, don't you be getting ahead of yourself. Okay. Because that first argument is going to tell you a lot. You know, are they minimizing the issue? Are they avoidant? Are they a runner? You know, do they start yelling? Do they have a bad temper? Do they calling you out your name, which is what? So people, I say the first argument is when the relationship really starts. It gets real. It's when it really gets real. And how do they treat other people that they claim to love? You know, that's something to pay attention to, because I know I had to learn this in my 20s and even in my 30s, honey. The way that they treated other people is how they eventually treated me. Like they didn't do it yet, but they eventually did. So that's typically very true, because they're not gonna, if this person has patterns and behaviors, you think they're gonna magically disappear because they've met you? No. Once you trigger that in them, then you'll get a taste of it as well. So pay attention to how they treat the people that they claim to love and care about. Are they talking about these people behind their back, smiling in their face and doing something else to you, towards you, in front of you, and thinking that's funny and cute? Hey, you got to pay attention to that, because eventually they'll be doing the same thing to you. So, and along those lines, you guys, we're going to always look out for a person's ability to compromise and be flexible. And I know some of you are like, compromise? I'm not compromising. But no, you're not going to compromise your core values. but you may need to compromise and be flexible on light work. You know what I mean? Or in other areas. Like, let's say it's a dating situation. This person only wants to do the dates where they want to go. They never want to do the ones that you want to do. It has to be their way and a highway. Like, come on. Like, you're not even open to new opportunity or experiences, or they didn't like it in the past, but maybe you might like it with me. Or it's about satisfying both of your desires if you have different interests. So little stuff like that can show you about the person. Or if they're only used to only going to casual spots and you want to go somewhere fancy and they're not even willing to put on a pair of khakis and a polo button up and a pair of loafers or something. Like, you don't own a pair of dress shoes. Well, if you're going to keep me in your life, we'll have to do that sometimes. So, so if this person isn't willing to compromise in certain ways, which that shouldn't be striking the core of their self-esteem and whatnot, but just check for a person's flexibility of being able to have both of your needs and desires and wants. It should be pleasurable for both of you, because that type of energy will spill over into other areas. If this person is just constantly telling you no, that's a red flag. No, 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 no. Unless it's something obvious. Like, let's say you made the physical boundary with them, but they keep trying to ask you to do physical stuff with them. Obviously, they're going to get a bunch of no's because they're not respecting the boundaries. So we're not talking about that. But it's like new things you're trying to do, or experiences, or can you do this, or da-da-da. It's always a no. This person is probably selfish, self-centered, unwilling to compromise, and extremely inflexible. You don't want, when you love someone, you care about them, you do want to make them happy, not at your own detriment. I gotta say that. Not at your own detriment or at your own self-respect and dignity, but in a healthy fashion. Okay? So yeah, you're going to have to compromise somewhere, because you guys aren't clones. You don't have the 100% same DNA. You're not going to want everything. Like, even if you're planning a wedding, it should be some of what he wants and some of what you want. A lot of women like to really just want it all their way, but he's getting married too. Like, try to incorporate stuff that both of you like. That's fair. You want someone that's going to be fair with you. Abusive people aren't fair. They're tyrannical. They're controlling. They're, you just don't want that. All right. Now, this next one is very important, you guys. They'll be happy about your self-care, and they won't want to disrupt that. Yes, they're going to be happy that you take care of yourself, instead of getting disappointed because they want that energy or that time to be directed towards them. So you want to be with someone that's happy that you have self-care, that will encourage you to continue to do it. You don't want people that are going to have their lips poked out because, well, before I met you, I was going to the gym X amount of times a week. I'm going to continue to make those investments. Or, whatever it is that is a part of your routine for your self-care. If you're not willing to stay up all night on the phone with them because you got to get up in the morning, or you have to rest, and, I don't know, maybe your schedules aren't that friendly, and maybe you won't be able to talk as much because of this, but you don't want to, throw off your whole sleeping system, which isn't going to be good for your health in the long run. It's okay. That person's going to understand, and they'll find a way. So you need someone that's going to be happy about your self-care, and they won't want to disrupt it. If anything, they'll probably encourage it and be happy for it, because they have their own self-care as well, and they need to be happy and encourage that too. And along the lines of self-care, someone that would be happy about your individuality, because yet again, they have theirs as well. You don't have to share all of the interests together, moving out of the energy of codependency, right? They have their thing. Sometimes you have yours. They might do this with their friends. You might do that with your friends, and you guys will still meet in the middle at some point, right? So this is good. This is good. So the next one was don't have a past of abusing others, but we already talked about it earlier. I moved it up, but yeah. Background checks, or just even, have you ever been arrested for domestic violence? You know, most guys, they will just tell you. They'll be upfront about that. So the next thing, you guys, that's important, especially for those of you who have abandonment issues, which could lead to rejection issues, right? Prepare for rejection, because even two good people sometimes may not be meant to be together. I think on this channel, I talk about not being one dimensional all the time. I really do. And certain words just get a really bad rap. They do. But, we have to evolve and mature over this in our emotional maturity, you guys. And rejection is really just redirection. It is. If somebody rejects you, at least they're being upfront about it, because a narcissist would just drag you along and play games with you. And they're really rejecting you psychologically and emotionally and spiritually, but they're not exactly being upfront with it. You have to read in between the lines of their games and this and that. But if someone just clearly rejecting the situation, and you might too, they still might not be the one for you. Just because the person is a good person doesn't mean they're your match or they're the one. But I don't want it to trigger abandonment issues. Just be okay with that. Well, they were a nice person, but they weren't the one for me still. Being a good person isn't the only thing that it needs to be. There needs to be more than that going on. So prepare for rejection, you guys, and don't take this, don't let it trigger those abandonment wounds inside you. Hopefully you've done enough work with it to where it won't do something like that. You'll accept that there's billions of people in the world, because there still are. And just because this one person is rejecting you, it doesn't have to pull up all the other rejections that needed to happen anyway. Because if an abusive person is rejecting you, is really just signaling you to move forward. And we have enough self-care and boundaries and self-love, self-preservation, you'll do just that. But we're just talking about two good people. So don't feel triggered that even with a good person, one or both of you will decide to reject the union or not continue forward. These things happen. That's called dating. You can't take everything personal in dating. Dating is just that, if you will. You're asking the right questions. You're interviewing each other, really. You're vetting one another. You're trying to figure it out if this is something that you can do long term or forever. And if one or both of you determine that it is what it is, that's what it was for. But some people are very more sensitive about this than others. But I don't want you to be that person. Just don't let that be you, because you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a hard time. And it just means that you need to work on that area with yourself. So, that's what I have, you guys, for this talk. It was quite a few things that we brought up and that I was thinking on since yesterday. And, we'll revisit this conversation from time to time, because it's good and it's healthy. It's healthy. And I know we talk a lot about being in the abuse, but it's important to also talk about when we're getting out of it and when we're moving on and we're getting into healthy relationships. Back when I was more so doing the coaching with people, there would be people that used to get the coaching from me when they were in the trauma, and I helped guide them out of that. But then they would come back to me when they met a new person, because they would be nervous. They're like, oh my God, Coach Lakia, I met someone. I'm afraid I'm going to ruin it. I don't even know how to behave. Right? So, so it just says, reflection and progression. I feel you are one of the best at understanding and the explaining of how to function in a normal relationship. I really don't understand why I even tolerated abuse for so long. Yeah, it was a learning curve for you, Soja, and it probably something that went back into your childhood, child. It probably did. But the good news is you've come out of that energy and your eyes are open and you've evolved, and that version of you, you'll never be that version again. So that's the beautiful thing about life. You know, we've all had our path here. Most of the people that subscribe to my channel have had a lot of childhood wounds or inner childhood wounds that needed to be healed, because we bring that into our adult connections. And it's to our detriment until we finally face them and acknowledge them. We have the self-awareness, we do enough shadow work on it, and then it's at least not to our detriment. And because we're not perfect people, there may be some components of you that you will always have to be mindful about. But if you're being mindful about it, then you'll have the checkpoints. You'll know when, you're going too far in the left field, or you'll know, what, I'm doing really good. I see my progression, but we're not perfect. So sometimes we still have slip ups. We still, we revert a little bit, just a little bit, but you'll find that you usually won't go all the way back to where you were, even if you have little gray areas where it wasn't exactly clear that you were in the right field, or you had a little slip up, or I let that go on a little bit too long, but that was just 3 weeks of my life or a month of my life versus the years that I stayed in it with the other person. You'll begin to catch things a lot quicker. Yeah. And honey, my understanding of this comes from a lot of pain and tears and suffering and betrayals and heartbreaks and being drugged through the mud and having dark nights of the soul and feeling the rawest feelings of the rawest feelings. So I'm smiling while I'm talking to you right now, but yeah, it was through a lot of purging and a lot of growing pains that I was able to obtain this wisdom. And then, I have talked to a lot of people, so I know about the darker side of human nature. And I try to share that with you guys, not to invoke fear in you, but to just help you be better at self-preservation and protecting, because there's a lot of beauty in the world too. So I'm not trying to paint a picture of doom and gloom, but I'm also real, and I know how things can be. But just sticking with the topic of what we're talking about, people who've come out of trauma and abuse, we need to hear these type of things so that we're not hindered from our traumas and abuse. I don't want it to hinder you, because if you think about it, after experiencing so much harm, don't you deserve to finally just have this healthy relationship? And if we think about it in a most intellectual manner, now you're intellectually aligned with it because you've hopped out of that other energy or those other patterns and behaviors that you weren't yet as conscious about, So a lot of things, we're doing it subconsciously, and it will take those painful experiences, because pain is a great tool to get our attention on things. And like, oh, that hurt. Why? Whoa, that hurt again. Like, oh, I'm tired of that hurting me. Why is this hurting me? Oh, it's because you didn't have enough self-esteem. Oh, it's because you didn't have the right kind of boundaries with yourself. Oh, well, then how do I do that? And, it just takes you on a whole journey when you get tired, because sometimes it has to be dealt with that way. You feel enough pain, it will be a trigger to, or a catalyst to get you to, want to stop that from happening. You'll have enough of it, But I'm a psychology junkie too. Like, to me, it was a natural thing for me to become. Like, you just start going through all of this and it's like, wow, that's amazing. And it's like, well, why do some humans, they come out of the same situation, but this one chose to become like the abuser. This one chose to become like the empath. Like, I have a curiosity about it. So, but you can never really get to the bottom of the human mind. So it's like, it's always something to learn about it, which gives me lots of conversations for you guys. And as I learn stuff, I pass it on. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. It's definitely my gift to share, and I'm obedient with it. So I hope that this live chat has helped someone, and I pray that everyone who has experienced traumas and abusive relationships, they do get the healthy relationships that they deserve, because you do deserve it. But you can't, let life beat you down to think that it can never happen to you, because we talked about that first. And the first healthy relationship obviously has to come from yourself. Okay, the healthier you are, it's true. The healthier you are, it's going to be extremely hard. Like, you won't even be able to relate to these people. It will be such a oil and water type of thing. Like, the further you are from that type of mindset is only when you're too close to it and not understanding why you're close to it, because it's a subconscious thing. But we'll bring it up through the roots when we address it, and you'll start getting further away from that energy. And then when you look back on it, you'll say something like what you just said. I really don't understand why I even tolerated it, because the version of you today that have done so much work and tapped in your self-awareness would never even do that again. So that's something to be really proud about, because you have graduated. You've graduated. But it's always good to stay close to channels like this for reinforcement and to continue to work with your mind. Because I always say, new levels, new devils. Maybe that person can't do anything for you, but people get craftier all the time. That's why you want to stay working those your brain muscles, right? That's why the banking system, they have to keep up with the fraud money and, people always trying to deceive. They have to keep with that, because people will try, okay, well, they figured that out. What else can I do? How can I make this tighter? How can I be sneakier? Like, you want to stay ahead of it. And it just helps you. Like, sometimes I'll listen to other channels and I don't even be listening to them because I'm going through something. I'm listening because it's increasing my emotional maturity. Them helping them with their problem and issues is actually arming me with more information, even if it's never relevant to my life. But if it ever came near me, I recognize it. I just have a curiosity about it, and I'll bring the information to you guys as well. But I'm always feeding my emotional maturity. And that is the number one tip that I would be giving you guys to do, because emotional maturity helps you in every area of your life. How you treat yourself, how you engage with others, how you allow others to engage with you. All right. So with that being said, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this live chat. But before I do, if anyone has any questions to ask me about anything, especially for the topic of today's live chat, I'll give it 2 minutes if you want to type something in there. Live chats are a good way to tap in with me. There are times when you can get direct one-on-one help with me. I'm on here pretty frequently, so you can like and subscribe, hit the bell, you'll be notified. I don't really have a set schedule, but it's when I feel moved. When I feel moved to speak on something, I do it right away. And it's kind of like that. So I'll wait to see if anybody wants to type anything. Other than that, while I'm waiting, the weather, it's just like a beautiful part of fall right now. It's not too cold. It's not too hot. Like, I'm ready to go play some tennis. I love playing tennis, you guys. After I get off with you guys, I have to make all these dentist appointments for the twins and Nathan and doctor's appointments. Like, child, mommy life, it's calling me. And the twins are doing really well. Some of you follow me on social media and you see them all the time. All right. So just says, thank you and looking forward to next time. Absolutely. And Soja, if there are topics that you want me to address that I haven't, let me know. But there is over 1,000 videos on this channel, you know, and a lot of content to help you guys with your emotional maturity. So use it for what you can. Like every day, people are watching videos I made 6 years ago, and it's helping them today. And I like my channel, you guys, because I've researched, before I leave, I've researched some things. I'm like, well, what do I literally did, and I'm going to do a video on this. As a matter of fact, I said I was when I seen this. This was like 9 months ago. It's on my to-do list, and I might just do it tomorrow because I can literally free talk this. But I don't know why YouTube recommended this to me, but it was a nun telling she was on a panel, and the people in the audience were asking her real life questions. Like they were trying to get to the meaning of life type of thing. And they asked her, why do some people suffer? And her question was, we don't know. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, and she's supposed to be close to spirituality. Supposedly. I was like, that's the answer you gave them? You don't know why people suffer? I'm like, even logically, I could think of why some people suffer. Man, I'm going to address that. I was like, oh my gosh. In that video of her saying, we just don't know, got so many views. Like 70,000 people watched her say, we just don't know. I'm like, whoa. And she was and she's had to been in her 70s. And I was like, whoa. And all this time of her being, or maybe she didn't want to share it. I'm like, is she gatekeeping it? Is she gatekeeping why people suffer? Is it something they don't want to share with the Catholic people? I don't know. But I was like, whoa, she gave them nothing. So it's either A, she really feels that way, or B, she's gatekeeping that information, you know? And I was like, nah, there has to be someone in the YouTube world to counter videos like that. And here I am. You know, I'm going to keep it real with you guys, and I'm not going to gatekeep the information because my intention is for you to know, for you to tell someone else, and so forth and so on, and make this world a better place through emotional maturity. Make it a safer place through emotional maturity, and help people connect with their spirituality, because these are the traumas and abuse, these attacks, they're spiritual attacks first and foremost. But yeah, there has to be better answers than that. It baffled me, you guys. I was like, whoa, she's on a panel and that's what I couldn't do it. I can't do people like that. Like, she has to know more than she's telling. And if she doesn't, God bless her. But all right, you guys, thank you for hanging out with me. You know, I love doing this. I enjoy it. I be happy when I'm told to speak on something because I come running on here to talk with you guys. But I love you. Keep investing in your emotional maturity and, you know, enjoy the healthy relationship, starting with yourself. But when you get it, you deserve it. You deserve it. You suffered so much in the past. You deserve that healthy relationship. Okay? You deserve them. You deserve them. Claim it, receive it, prepare for it, enjoy it, nurture it, all of that good stuff. All right, you guys, I love you, and I will talk to you in the next live chat.